Welcome to Leave No Doubt. I've been joined by Lee Brown, an ex-teammate and a good mate of mine. Brownie, thank you for being with me. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good, mate. Thank you.
Midway through pre-season, how's it going?
Yeah, all good. I think it's my 15th pre-season now, so you start to get used to it.
To get us started, mate, we'll dive in and out of your career and its different stages. But something that I wanted to dive straight in with you about specifically is I think you can really give the listeners a good insight into is how to manage competition for places. Competition for places is always something that's spoken about by managers and players in interviews. You've spoken about it, about it in interviews, and with almost 500 appearances, you just spoken there about 15th pre-season so far in your career. You've managed to do that very well. How important in modern day football is the ability to deal with the pressure of competition?
Yeah, I think there's, if you're in a good team, you always have competition for places, and I think it drives you to improve your game. It makes you not get lazy. I think it's so important. I think you can get really comfortable in football if there ain't competition for places. And if you want to push yourself to get to that next level, I think competition for places does that. But how managing that, I think it gets easier over time. But as a young lad or very early in my career, I think it sort of worried me a bit too much. But on saying that, I don't think worry's a bad thing, because there's nothing wrong with being worried, because I think that's what makes you improve your performances. You concentrate more, you don't want to have a bad day's training. So that worry sort of drives you to not drop your standards, if that makes sense. And I think that very much done that to me, where I had a tendency to get comfortable. So when there was competition, I think it sort of sharpened my tools a little bit in terms of, right, refocus. And it's competition. It's competition, and I think it's inside you not to lose that competition to whoever.
So can you tell me the main differences that you feel like there was between comfortable Lee Brown and Lee Brown that was having to compete for his place?
Yeah, I think for me, I could feel myself going through the motions in training. You probably didn't think you had to do that extra little bit because you probably knew you was going to play because there was no one else. Compared to a Lee Brown who all of a sudden as a good player wanting to take your position, now you are doing the extras, you are doing that extra run, you are probably eating a little bit better, you are probably not going to bed so late so you can perform in training to make sure you are playing. So I think it's very natural to sort of get into a comfort zone. It's hard not to over a long period of time. But as I said, for me, it certainly sharpened my tools in terms of my mindset when there was someone looking to take your position, because I think it just realigns your focus, I would say.
So how did you approach training and games then when there was that added pressure of you performing?
Yeah, you just strip it all back, really, in terms of when you're comfortable. I think you sort of don't think about training too much. To when there is competition, you sort of do the basics. You eat well, you sleep well, you get in early, you do the little bit of extras after. It's all the boring stuff, but it sort of refocuses your mind to not let this person beat you. And I think it's a good mentality to have it for any. I think every player has probably got the same mentality. You'd like to hope so, that they want to come out on top. Just the competitive nature of football. So yeah, I think everyone's got that self pride that they don't want to be dropped or because especially in football, I think self pride is key.
I'm interested to know because obviously you've played left back your whole career, and you've probably competed against other different kind of left backs with different attributes to you in your career. I'm interested to know, did you ever did you ever find yourself doing anything different in either training or a match day because you thought, the person I'm playing against is really good at this, so I'm going to try and do that well too, and you sort of get away from your own game a little bit? Did that ever happen?
Yeah, a little bit, I'd say. I think I think you'd always look at it and go, right, if he's brought in a really attacking fullback, say, right, well, that's the way he must want to go. He must want to go really attacking. So well, I'll go over attacking if that's what he wants. And that's probably how I looked at it in my younger days, when really looking at it now and with an older head, I probably should have looked at it as oh, he's probably brought in an attacking one, but then he wants a defensive one as well. He wants both options, and not to give him two options of the attacking one, if that makes sense, where when you're young and naive, you sort of think, well, if he's really good at attacking, I need to get good at attacking. And you probably try and adapt a little bit to, you probably overthink, I'd say. Does he want an over-attacking? Does he want a defensive one? Is that why he's brought this person in? But yeah, I think very much so in your early days, you probably overthink it. And then obviously, the more you play and the more you realise the game, you probably don't think about it too much. It's sort of water off a duck's back. So
some of the Rovers lads, when speaking about this, might laugh specifically then because
they're having a great time here.
Because we remember at one particular interview that you did, obviously when you were competing for a position with someone else at Rovers, and the answer that you gave at the time was, "I've always been under pressure to compete with players, but I've always won." And that wasn't necessarily you being an ego. That was sort of, I think that people had forgotten that you'd always played, but it wasn't because you had a comfortable position. You were always having to prove yourself in that. Was there ever a time that you had found yourself beaten by the competition, and what did you do? At that point, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, that of course I haven't won, or no one wins them all. There's been times where I've sat on the bench for long periods of times in my career, where, as an example, for I think Mark McGee was the manager at Bristol, and he brought in Jim Patterson. And for whatever reason, he liked Jim Patterson over me. He was a more aggressive fullback, a lot older than me at the time. And yeah, I'll be honest with you, it felt like there was nothing I could do which would get me in the team. And obviously it's demoralising as players. I think every player just wants to play games. It was at a period in my career where I was 24, 25, where I felt like I needed to be playing. I wasn't playing. And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. You're living away from your family. You're miles away from home, and the one reason you're there is to play football. And when you're not playing football, I don't think people realise the mental side of things when things ain't going so well for you in football. I think football can be the best job in the world, or it can be the worst job in the world, depending on circumstances. And I think 20 to 25, I think players suffer with that in terms of the mental side of the game, and some people older than that as well. But yeah, I think it gets to you a lot. It gets to you a lot. It gets to you a lot that you're not getting the success that you think you deserve, or you, for whatever reason, you're not playing what you love to do. But how I dealt with that really is just sort of just strip it back, do the basics, work hard. And I know it's so cliche and say, oh yeah, just work hard. But it's you can't let it take over your life in terms of how down you get. You've got to refocus and try and be the best version of yourself, really.
It's easy to say sometimes, isn't it, to not only work hard as a cliche, but that to not get too down, because when you're in that moment, it's incredibly difficult, right?
Yeah, and you've seen it, Parts. You've seen it where people do get really low. When they're not playing, they get really low, and they take it personal, and it don't just finish at training. They take it home to their home life. And you've been around a long time to see all different characters, so many different characters, and so many people deal with it in certain different ways. But I think the older you get, you definitely deal with situations like that better, compared to what you think you should be dealing with it when you're younger. But yeah, I think it's just trying to stay focused on the job at hand and try and just be the best version of yourself. As cliche as that is, all you can do is be the best person you can be, and train well, and hope for one day you get an opportunity. If that opportunity comes, great. But if it don't, then it don't.
Talking of you know, of young ages and young guys at that 20 to 25-year-old period. When you were younger, obviously you were involved in QPR's academy from a very early age. You've been competing your whole life. Firstly in the academy for contracts. That's, you know, after 1 year, 2 years, every age group. You also then go on to compete for opportunities to be involved in the first team. How do you think that you've been able to do that so well, whilst also at that age developing as a player?
Yeah, it feels like a long time ago now, that, Jesus Christ. But no, I think there's so much pressure on especially young kids in football. Even, you know, it's like even coming through an academy at such a young age. Yeah, I've played with some really good players and better than me by a country mile, but then gone on, got released and couldn't get another club because they couldn't get over the disappointment of being released. But yeah, I think there's so much pressure, especially coming through them ages from 16 to 22, where you're probably not as strong enough to be into the first team. You're not developed, and it's sort of them limbo years where you do take knockbacks, and it's just not that mentality of not giving up. And there's so many players. Well, you look at a youth team. I think I looked at a youth team picture the other day, and there's obviously 20 people in this youth team, and there's not one player playing. And it's a shame, really, because there were some really good players there with much more ability than me, a lot more ability. I was probably bottom half of ability in that group. But that's the side of the mentality side where it's so important, and which I don't think there's enough focus on. It's all about ability, isn't it? Like, he's got ability, but that mentality to not give up and not give in, even when you take knockbacks. In terms of, I've been released 3 times throughout my career, and I remember one time when I got released from QPR, and I remember vividly crying my eyes out on the way home from the journey, and no one probably ever knew that, but it felt like my life was ending. Like, that was all I knew, and I've just been released. What do I do now? I've come out of school, but one thing led on to come out of land. I got a bit lucky, but yeah, I remember that. I remember that journey vividly. I was driving alone. I remember it.
I've had a conversation. I've recorded a similar conversation like this with Marlon Pack a few days ago, and we were talking about how no footballer really, especially at our level, maybe at the top elite level, not many of them have suffered hardship or had to overcome anything, but I can almost guarantee that they have at some point in their life. But in terms of being released, like I myself have been released, most of the guys that we've played with in our career at sort of this League One, League Two, National League level have been released or have had to overcome obstacles. How important, you're talking about mentality and that youth team group that you just had a look at, some majority, if not all of them, are not playing, apart from yourself. How important is mental toughness? And I want you to try and strip it back as to what do you think it was about you that's allowed you to be on the lower level of talent that you've just said in that group, but be able to get over all this stuff and make it?
Yeah, no, I've been extremely lucky. I've been in the right place at the right times. I don't think it's necessarily my mentality as such, because some of them boys had good mentality as well. But sometimes you've got to be in the right place at the right time, and certainly in my career, I feel like I've had a little bit of luck. Well, I think everyone has a little bit of luck, really. But for me personally, I've had a lot of luck in terms of being in the right place at the right time, speaking to the right people, and sort of getting a chance, really. So mentality-wise, for me, I think it was always sort of installed from my dad. I've got an older brother. It was sort of, that was just the way it was. It was just the way it was in my family. You never quit. You never quit. It don't matter if you go and play step 8 you never quit. It's why you just never ever quit. And that was just the mentality growing up. I think I was always fighting against my older brother, so he was older than me. So yeah, I think it was for me, I think like it was just always there to never quit.
I think that this story that we're going to start talking about is incredibly relatable for a lot of players, really, because almost all, like we're talking about, people go through some sort of rejection or some sort of being released from the club that they're at. And that period of time for you at QPR, as you were 19, weren't you? You'd only made one first team appearance, so it wasn't like you'd really been exposed to loads of opportunities in the first team. Talk to me about that period of time, not just obviously that the moment that you released. Like, talk to me about how that went down, and then talk to me about how you found yourself after that summer with Bristol Rovers.
So yeah, as you say, I was at QPR. So I left Arsenal at 14 or so. Went to QPR. I got released, obviously. Struggled to get to QPR, but got to QPR somehow. I can't even remember the story how. I think I must have gone on trial or something. But yeah, it's spent time at QPR. 5 years I was at QPR, 5-6 years. Obviously left school, done my apprentice there, and then I got released. About 19, 20, I got released. And as you say, you've not played the game. You've got no one knows who you are. You're a young lad, never played first team football. Now you're looking to go into a first team environment for someone who no one really knows about. And as you know, in football, it's a results business. These people don't really want young kids as such who are potentially losing their job. Like you're an unknown. You're a gamble. You're a gamble. So I think it's really hard when you come out of an academy or under 23 setup.
Did you know that straight away? Because I know the perception of some young lads is not a massive ego, but it's almost like someone will take me.
True, yeah.
Someone will take me.
Yeah, no, I knew that straight away. I was a bit of a realist in terms of, I always thought, I knew I wasn't the best. I know I ain't going to go on trial and they're going to go, bloody hell, he's got loads of ability. He's really quick. He can do step overs or whatever. I knew I weren't that person. So I knew I ain't going to set the world alight in terms of that going on trial. So yeah, I literally come out of QPR in the summer. I had nothing. Literally, all these agents, you know what they're like. Yeah, don't worry, you'll be all right. You'll be all right.
Did you have an agent at the time?
I had someone who I was speaking to, but not really an agent as such, who was sending stuff out and nothing was coming back. You know, nothing. It was a quiet time, and it was probably a time where it's, what do you do? It's going to get to a period where, what do you do here? So yeah, a month went by and nothing, no phone calls. I'm obviously ringing this person every other day saying, as the phone rang, he's saying no. And now it's, I remember going away at the time. The holiday was booked, went away with some friends, and I was like, what? I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do? And he was supposed to be joining Bristol Rovers in the summer because the manager there was who'd been on loan previous with, and he was going there. It was all lined up. It was a done deal, and we were laughing at the time. Imagine if I went there as well. It'd be a bloody dream, because we'd spent 6 months apart in terms of he went on loan somewhere and I went on loan somewhere. I said, bloody hell, it'd be a dream if we both signed there. And he joked and went, just ring him. I've got his number. And I said, no, I can't just ring him. He ain't going to have a clue who I am. He goes, no, just ring him or take his number and when you get back, see what you want to do. So I remember we finished the holiday. Obviously, I was speaking to people going, should I call him? It's a bit, what'd you say? Like, I'm a 19-year-old kid, jumped up kid who's come out of QPR, never kicked the first team football really. What'd you say? So I remember I got back. I thought, I was down the garage at my dad's garage. And I thought, you know what, sod this, I'm going to call him. So I've literally walked down this garage. Sirens are going past on the road. I'm thinking, he's going to not know what's hit him. I'm in the middle of a main road. So I've rang him about, his name was Paul Buckle. Paul Buckle just took over at Bristol Rovers. I said, hello, Paul. It's Lee Brown. I don't know if you know who I am. I'm a left back at QPR. I've just been released. I was just wondering if you needed a left back. He's gone, you've just called me at the 11th hour. I'll call you back in 5 minutes. So I'm scratching my head. I'm walking up and down this main road. Sirens are going in the middle of Mitcham. I'm thinking, I need to get out of here. So I'm walking around. He's rang me back after 5 minutes, dead on. Lee, you've rang me at the 11th hour. I was just about to sign a left back from Bradford, but he's messing me about. I said, all right. He went, tell me a little bit about yourself. I said, bloody hell, you've chucked it on my toes here, Paul. So I've said, look, I ain't gonna chat shit to you, Paul. I said, I ain't going to sit here and tell you I'm the best player in the world, because I'm not. But I'll work my balls off for you, and I'll try and do the best I can. But I ain't going to sit here and like an agent and tell you I'm the best player in the world, because I ain't. He goes, don't worry, Lee. I've already spoke to Mick about you, the assistant manager at QPR. He'd give you a good thing. I said, oh, right. He goes, look, give me 5 minutes, I'll ring you back again. I said, he's having me on here, isn't he? So I put the phone down. I'm thinking, bloody hell, that's gone a bit weird. Like, how'd you sell yourself at 19? So, yeah, he's rang me back after 5 minutes. He's gone, look, I'll tell you what I'll do for you. I want to sign you. I said, huh? I couldn't believe it. I literally couldn't believe it. He went, how much do you want? I said, look, I was on this at QPR. Look, I don't care about the money. I just want an opportunity. He goes, you're due for me. He just wanted to be on the cheap, didn't he? He's gone, right, £350 a week. You can come in. £350 a week. You can come in. I said, right, okay. Could you get it to 400? He goes, don't take the piss. So I said, all right, okay. I said, look, I can come tonight. I'm going away on Thursday. I'll come tonight and sign it. So I've gone down there and signed it for £350 a week. I've had to move. I've got to move up there. Got nowhere to live. No, not negotiating anything more than £350 a week. So yeah, literally, he went, look, you're not going to be my first choice, but look, you do well after 10 games. I'll give you a new deal. You got my word. Like, you've got my word. I'll give you a new deal if you do well. I went, right, okay, we'll do that. I went back in that summer. I was fit because I'd just been running the whole time, didn't have no time off. I went in that summer, I was the fittest there. Like, the people who know there now, who I speak to, still laugh about the bleep test that when I was there. But it was sort of, what else are you supposed to do? Like, I thought if I was going on trial somewhere, you've got to be the fittest. So yeah, went in that summer. I ended up starting the first game of the season and doing really well. And luckily, he gave me a new contract September, October time. But yeah, how it happened was so lucky, and it was so unheard of, really. But yeah, no, it's funny enough, when I left Bristol, I actually messaged Bucks and said, look, I've left Bristol after 8 years. Just want to say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, because it was sort of like, if it weren't for him, I'd be nowhere near it. And obviously spent a good 7-8 years there, all off the back of that, really.
How much do you think that holds so much weight, you calling him, right? And you've got somebody speaking on behalf of you in that summer, and he said, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that. But you speaking to the manager yourself probably showed him the kind of person that you were. And if you'd got your agent to call him or said, I've got the manager at Bristol Rovers' number, can you speak to him for me? It probably wouldn't have happened. Yeah, 100%. Right? So in modern day football, I know that agents are huge, and having an agent obviously can allow you loads of opportunities, probably more so the higher up you go. Yeah. I myself negotiated my own deal this summer. I've got great agents that I work with, but I obviously knew the manager personally, so I managed to sort it all out myself. How important or how much weight do you think it holds for lads now to be prepared? They might not have to, but to be prepared to speak to managers on their own if they have to. Yeah, look, thinking back now, the thought of me doing that at a 19-year-old lad is sort of like mental, because I see some players here at 19 and I think, would they do that? But hand on my heart, he would not even have entertained the conversation if my agent called. I don't even think it would have been a conversation. But I think it was just and years later he told me that that was the reason he gave me it. And obviously there was boys on much bigger money than that, so he basically gave me a chance really on little money really for where they was at the time, and what they were paying. So all because of that phone call, and I think he respected that in terms of I rang him personally, and looking back now, it was a bloody good call. Did you get any advice on what to say in that phone call, or did you just try and give yourself a pep talk before it? I'll be honest with you, it was going over in my head for 2-3 weeks. I'm like, you practice what you're going to say in your head. You know exactly what you're going to say. I didn't say one thing that was in my head, not one. But do you know what? It was. Do you know when you just something comes over and you go, "Oh, sod this. Let's just get it done with." And that's what it was. And
I'm actually flabbergasted that I actually did it now. Really, looking back now, it was sort of such a ballsy move in terms of to do that at 19. I don't think I'd do it now. But yeah, I think it was, when your back's against the wall so much. I literally had nothing. I'd waited 4 to 6 weeks. Boys were going back to pre-season in a week to 2 weeks' time. You know, you've come out of school, and you know what it's like in school. Everyone puts you on a pedestal because you do play football, and your self-pride took a little bit of a knock. You've been released. So it was sort of now or never sort of thing. It was do or die, really. And if he said no, I don't think I'd be playing football now. It would be, where would I have gone? You know, I really don't think I'd be playing football now. I would have looked at doing something else just because of the emotion of it all. And so yeah, it was my last chance saloon by calling him, and it paid off.
Talk to me a little bit about then what happens when the phone goes down for the third time and you've agreed a deal. You go up there and you sign it. From that moment, then what's your approach to because you could have signed that deal and thought, you know what, I've done it. I've signed a deal somewhere. I'm going to take it a bit easy now, and I'm going to turn up to pre-season, see what happens. You didn't do that. You got that opportunity, and you wanted to grab it with both hands. What did you do after that phone call?
Directly after the phone call, I can remember it now. I was down that Mitcham main road. I walked back down to the carriage of my old man. I've got, Dad, you're not going to believe it. Because obviously I told him I was going to call him. I said, you're not going to believe it. I'm going to Bristol tonight. I've got a contract. He said, no, you're winding me up. He said, get in the car, we'll go now. Come on, we're leaving. He's ready to get in the car. Driving to Bristol. I thought, bloody hell, you're keen. I said, settle down, we'll go later. But yeah, he was over the moon, because obviously for him, he was sort of thinking, my boy, like, he's seen the tough time I've gone for. He sort of wanted me to, but he was literally, I still remember his face and his reaction now. And yeah, so first of all, I went back, told him, and that was that. But yeah, I always, because it weren't great money, and I had to get a flat in that, and I had to live on that. It was sort of, I was left with peanuts. I was left with nothing. After Bristol's an expensive place to live. They didn't give me no accommodation, so I literally was working for nothing. Well, not nothing, but it was minimal. So yeah, I wasn't in a position to go, let's just sack all this off now. I was really fit at the time. I just thought, in my head, my mentality was, look, I know I'm going there second choice, but if I'm fit, hopefully I'll get an opportunity and I'll play the games. So yeah, we ended up moving the left back into centre half and playing me from the first game, Gary Sawyer.
I might remember his name.
Yeah, Gary Sawyer. Yeah, he was there for 2 years. But yeah, they ended up moving him inside and playing me straight away. And after 10, 15 games, he gave me a new deal, which was much better.
Do you think during your career you've appreciated being a player because of how hard it was for you to manage to become one?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's such a hard road to get there, and to make it into full-time football, as you know, it's tough. It's tough. There's so many good players, better than me, way better than me, who are not playing full-time. And it is tough, and sometimes you've got to be at the right place at the right time, and just your face fits or it don't fit. It's really tough, and you know enough people in the game that there's good players out of work. Even this summer, there's good players who ain't got jobs, who ain't getting paid, and they're good players. And sometimes it's pot luck. So I do feel like you have to be a luck. You have got to be lucky sometimes throughout your career.
And I fast forward a little bit because, I'm trying to hit sort of like the main spots of your career and how that can benefit anybody listening. But for the first 3 seasons you spent at Rovers, you played in almost every single game. Those first 2 seasons, this was in League Two, you sort of finished mid-table. But for you specifically, individually, they were, you were playing quite well. They were quite successful. That third season, obviously, you guys end up getting relegated from League Two. And I don't necessarily need you to go into too much detail on why you think you got relegated or what your opinion is on why that happened. But specifically for you, what did that do to you? As a player, no one really ever wants to get relegated. It's sort of like the holy grail of things that you don't want to do. How much did it hurt you, and what did it do to you?
Yeah, I think it come at a stage in my career which I was 23, I think around about that age. And I think when you get relegated, it's a factor of a lot of things. It's not just one thing. It's sort of a factor of a lot of things throughout the whole course of the season. So yeah, there's reasons, and a lot of reasons we just basically weren't good enough. The squad wasn't good enough. It's as simple as that, and that's why we got relegated. But yeah, moving forward from that, it was sort of, I personally was okay that season, which a few of the boys were. Quite a few of us. So it was sort of 23. It was a tough decision whether to stay in League Two at another club or potentially stay at Bristol Rovers. And look,
you was obviously under the age of 24 at that point. So someone would have had to spend money on you.
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to leave. I was close. I was close to leaving just because in that mindset at that age is I need to play as high as I can, and it's that mentality, you know. Do you know what? Darryl Clark at the time just took over, and he went. I knew him from before, and he just basically said all the things that I wanted to hear. Really, I was happy at Bristol Rovers. Really, that it was a good city to live in. And I just took the gamble, really. I thought, do you know what, why not? Bristol Rovers in the conference was a massive club. And I thought if we get promoted, it'd be brilliant. And it happened to work out well, you know, but it's what I'm saying. It's all luck, innit? It could have gone the other way and we could have struggled, which we did early on in that season. But yeah, we happened to get straight back up, which was probably the most enjoyable season I've had as a professional, really.
I know you've alluded to a couple of times about being lucky in right place, right time, but I do believe personally that hard work does pay off, and the luckier, you know, the harder you work, the luckier you get. So it's not all luck that you've managed to be successful. Like there's a lot about you and your personality that has meant that you've been allowed to do that. Yeah,
the thing is, I'll be the last person to say that, but for me, it's sort of, I feel like everything happens for a reason. You know, everything happens for a reason. For me, you just got to try and do the best you can, and where that takes you is where that takes you. And I've just had lucky to have some good memories in football, and to last this long has been a blessing, really.
I'm interested to know, obviously, like hopefully people listening, people who have careers, they don't experience relegation, but people will, right? And if they listen to this, and it's might happen this season for quite a lot of people. What did you have to deal with that summer? Like when, obviously, that final game, there's a long period of time. There's about 2 months in between, obviously, one season finishing and another season starting, plus pre-season. During that 2 month period, talk to me about the details of how you felt, what was happening outside of you, like what were you hearing off other people? How did you feel about yourself?
Yeah, it was tough. I remember vividly, straight after the game, we were having rows with the fans in the car park. Because obviously they're blaming the players, of course they are, and so rightly so, you know. We're having full-blown rows in the car park with all your family next year. I had a young kid at the time, and these fans are wanting to tear up. So yeah, it was tougher. And Bristol's a big city where they love their football. They're such a passionate fan base. So I remember going out in Bristol. I think it was a festival of some sort, like a family festival, food festival down the seafront. So went down there with the family. I had to leave after 20 minutes. I literally, right, we got to go. Like, I feel like everyone's looking at me. Like, I can't be here. Like, everyone's looking at me. It got to the point where we had to get out of Bristol after about a week because it become too much in terms of that bubble. And where I lived was close to a hardcore fan base, so it was a case of, look, let's get out of here. And that was probably the best thing I did. Was after a week, 10 days, we all went back down to London. We went away and sort of got out of that bubble. But that first week to 10 days was tough. Like, I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to go to the shop because someone would talk to you and give their opinion, which rightly they can do. But yeah, it's just sort of, you can't get away from that season, and especially when you're around that age, you sort of take it personally. You know, you take it personally in terms of, bloody hell, was it all my fault? So So yeah, we ended up going away and getting out of the situation. I sort of, do you know what? I sort of went away and reset a little bit, and that is what made me come back. And it was when I come back, I was in a different mindset completely. I thought, look, it's a new season, put that to bed, and that's where it went.
Talk to me a little bit more detail about that then, because you've already spoken about how you managed to overcome being released from a club, and I myself know how difficult that is. I was a bit younger than you when I was released, 15 years old, and you do feel like it's the end of the world. You've been relegated as a player. I'm sure I can imagine you questioning yourself and your ability. Am I cut out for this? Am I any good? Was it all my fault? Across your career, obviously, I've been, not only do I know you very well, but having a look before this conversation and going through your career, you've managed to overcome quite a lot. How did you manage to, you've just said set the reset button, but for people listening, I want you to go into a little bit more detail about how you managed to do that, because a lot of people in football, almost all, will go through some sort of negative feeling about themselves. What's your advice on people getting over that sort of stuff? What did you do?
For me, I always, it's a cliche, I always went back to the drawing board in terms of I just work hard. I think a run, if I went for a run, it would reset my brain in terms of if I was at a low point or I was doubting myself, I'd think, right, I'm getting the fittest I've ever been then. Like I'd go that way in terms of I could be really low, but then I could be like, right, fully focused. Let's come back and be the fittest. Let's. So I sort of went down the fitness route, not really football specific in terms of right, I need to work on crossing. Oh, yeah, but it was never ever right. I'll do extra with the ball. It was always literally, let's just get fitter. Let's be as fit as I can be. Didn't even touch a ball. It was sort of, but that helped me mentally in terms of working hard. So that's how I approached it. I approached it in terms of my fitness and wanting to be the fittest I've ever been. In any time I've had a negative, even if I've had a bad game, I think the boys used to joke at Portsmouth and Bristol. Every time I had a bad game on the Tuesday, I'll do a run just because I wanted to clear that bad game out of my head. And I think, it must be my fitness. So I do like box to boxes, and they used to laugh every time we know you had a bad day. We know on the Tuesday you're going to do a run, but that was just my way. Like everyone has their own way of how they deal with things, but that was just my way. And after I'd done that run, I'd be reset for the next Saturday. But everyone goes through down times in football. If you think any player or anyone, even at the top of their game, don't go through a bad spell or a mentally down point, then they're lying, because 100% every person doubts themselves at one point or has a down ebb where they get relegated, they get dropped. That's just the business we live in, and it's just how you come through them bits is how it defines you.
So that guilt of a bad performance or a bad outcome of a season, you ease that guilt by, you say working hard, but you ease that guilt specifically by trying to get as fit as you possibly could do.
Yeah, I think it the running and the exercising sort of just helped my mental state in terms of it just cleared my mind. If I'm working hard, I know I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing all I can, and that's how I used to look at it really. So if I had a bad game, for example, I'd do a run, and it sort of it just resets my brain, and that's just how I used to deal with things, and not so much now because I'm way better of dealing with things and I've got other things going on that I can do that. But back then, when my full focus was football and everything was football, that was my reset, and that was fitness.
So give me a little bit of an insight then in that summer, because you do get relegated into the National League, but you've touched on it already. Bristol Rovers in the National League are an enormous team, right?
Yeah.
And they're expected to beat every team that they play in at that level. So you go from being a team that's not really used to winning at all, you've been beat most weeks, you've been relegated, everybody feels rubbish about themselves, to then you start pre-season and you're going into a new season expected to win every game. Fans are expecting you to win every game. Everybody's coming to the Memorial Stadium on a Saturday to see you win. How difficult was it to go from getting relegated to preparing to be a team that's supposed to win the league?
Yeah, it was tough, and the team the team didn't deal with it well for the first 2 months of the season. We really struggled. I don't think we won many games at all. I think every time you get relegated, the team always goes, we'll be all right, and the team below, we'll cruise it. And I think it's that mentality, and they think it's going to be easy. And it's never easy. It don't matter who you're playing against. Games are never easy, especially at conference. It's a good level, and I think we struggled as a team to start with. I don't know what the stats say, but we didn't win many games at all for the first month, 2 months of that season. And it was sort of, we were climatising of the expectation, going into games at Altrincham away and expected to beat them 4-0, and we were losing 3-0. And you can imagine the Bristol Rovers fans at that time, Jesus Christ. Like, they expect you to beat everyone. Championship, League One, they just want you to win. Don't care how. So you can imagine us going away to an Altrincham away and losing. You can imagine the meltdown of what was going on. So that sort of was building. But to be fair, Darryl Clark at the time, the manager, he was under some serious amount of pressure. He took over for the last 10 games of the season. He obviously was in charge when we went down. He done all the recruitment in the summer. And then we've started the season and not one game for a month, 6 weeks. You can imagine the abuse he was getting. And then
he tells a story, doesn't he, about that he got to the training ground and had there was flyers everywhere of.
God, he loves that story, doesn't he? Jesus
Christ. Darryl Clark out, and he said he kept them all in his office.
Yeah, so that's just his way. He's dealt with it. It was obviously Darryl Clark out all over the training ground, and he wanted to keep hold of them to remind him of where he come from, sort of thing. So yeah, do you know what? He recruited really well in that summer and that whole year, really. And brought in some really good characters. And when we did climatise to it and got over that expectation level, I think Darryl Clark was very clever how he dealt with that situation where he sort of gone, right, let's ignore the noise now, let's shut the shutters, no press are coming in, no one's coming in, it's us in this building and we're going to fight the world, sort of thing. It was that sort of mentality. And since that started, we sort of won the first one, and we won the second one. And it was sort of like we become this group which was fighting against the world. And we were also against it. We were all getting abused, every single one of us, because there's no hiding place when you're losing. You've got relegated and you're expected to win, especially in Bristol. We were all getting a hiding. So it was a course of, we've only got each other and we're going to fight for each other. And one thing led to another, and how we managed that situation was very, very good for me. So yeah, we ended up coming together and obviously having a really successful season.
For you personally then, because up until that point, obviously off the back of the relegation the year before and the 2 years before that, although you had personally performed quite well, you'd finished in sort of mid-table League Two teams, that was the first year that you'd really had sustained success, that, ultimately ended up with you getting promoted. But for you as an individual, for you as a player, you started to feel like, I'm actually getting success here. So what was that year like for you specifically? Because hopefully people listening will go through tough times. Hopefully they're going to go through great times where you win, you perform really well. What was your football lifestyle like at that time? Like, how did you feel about yourself? What was your mindset?
Yeah, no, I think your mindset's completely different. I think that year we had such a good group in terms of a changing room. Like, it's probably the best changing room I've had for them 2-3 years. And as you say, like yourself, we're all now really close still to this day, So that changing room, when you're winning game, you make memories and friends that will last you a lifetime. And I think we had a really good squad there that we were doing really well. We obviously got promoted, but there was characters in there who wouldn't let you get too above yourself. And control everyone's emotion. And I think we were just all having so much fun. That's why we were winning games. Not so much, we weren't the best players in the conference. There was still we were average, but our team spirit that year was what got us promoted, and the year after. It was that team spirit that we were coming in every day having such a laugh, and enjoying everyone's company so much. It was sort of, we were just wanting to work hard for each other, and it took us a long way as a group.
So just to try and conclude this part of the conversation, for people who are trying to get over hardships, who are trying to get over negatives, might be negative performances, negative outcomes on their season, being released, what advice would you give those people as to how you can get over that?
I think you just got to strip it back. I think you got to strip it back in terms of, look, you need to know what you're good at. You need to know what resets your brain. As I say, mine was fitness and just working hard and knowing that I'm doing the best I can do, But I think people have got to talk to people, I was very much at that age, didn't want to tell anyone that I was down and depressed. It's sort of, I'm all right. And that's very common in football, I'm all right. It's all a front around the boys because you're in a changing room with 22 boys. It's all a front. Everyone puts on a front. That they've not got the they're not down about things. But really, what's the hardship of just having a conversation with someone saying, look, what do you think? Like, what do you think I can do? And I'm a bit down and this and that. It is such a stigma around football of weakness. I've been a culprit of it myself, abusing people, and it's got to a stage where that stigma's got to go, really, because you do grind people down in terms of you're not allowed to show weakness. And there's nothing wrong with weakness. It's just how you channel that weakness and how you bounce back from that. Because we've all had dark days. Everyone in football's have had dark days, but it's how you react to that and how you overcome them. And for me, as I say, I overcome mine by just working hard and going for a run and working overly hard, really, to know that I've done everything I can to put myself in the best position to move forward. So
you did managed to get promoted that year, obviously, out of the National League, and you did have a lot of success, and you took that success into the next season. I think obviously it's well documented that team got back-to-back promotions.
I'm still living off that.
Yeah, no, back-to-back promotions.
I'll tell you what, drop it again.
Absolutely incredible. Like a lot of National League teams now are trying to emulate what obviously Rovers did that year. It's sort of like the National League is such a good league now, such a good standard, that a lot of teams do genuinely think we can get promoted twice here. They don't see League Two now as being such that we've got to stay in this league. No, a lot of clubs think we can go into this league. Stockport, for example, this season, I imagine they're going to do very, very well this year.
Yeah, they will, yeah.
But obviously back-to-back promotions and for people that aren't necessarily Rovers fans listening to this conversation, and for guys trying to understand obviously your career and to take as much from you as they possibly can, talk to me about that moment at the end of the season in your words, in your opinion, as you see it, because a lot of people have asked you questions about it, but I want to hear it from your mouth.
So yeah, it was a mad old season, really. We obviously got promoted. We were slow burning throughout the course of the season, we were thereabouts, but just slow burning. And it come to that last game, and there was so much expectation around it. We'd been on a good run of form, and we're sitting in fourth place, I think it was. I can't even remember, really. We're in fourth place, and Accrington are in third. We've got to win at home. Was it Dagenham? Yeah, Dagenham. Accrington have got to lose or draw. But yeah, it was... Obviously, everyone knew the expectation going into the game. It was sort of, as a player, you want to go up automatic. You don't want the extra 3 weeks as the playoffs. So all the players knew, right, we need to win this game here. Like, we don't want this. We had Vegas booked on it. We had a lot riding on it. So yeah, look, the game's going by. We've missed chance after chance. Matty Taylor that year scored X amount of goals. He was on fire. But he's missing everything. He can't hit a barn door. He's hitting posts, like clear-cut chances. We're having a stinker. We're 1-0 down, actually. We're 1-0 down. So all this pressure going into the game, they've scored. Like, everyone's going, we're going to batter them. We've gone 1-0 down. There's a massive crisis. Like, you can hear a pin drop in the mem. Like, you're like, drop me out. Billy Bowden chopped 4 players and slid it in, bring it back 1-1. Now we're missing chance after chance. It's 1-1. We're at 80th minute. 85th minute, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, it's game over here. We're going playoffs, another 3 weeks onto our season. We're knackered. 86 minutes, 87, 88. I'm thinking, sod this. I'm going. I've just left back. I'm up at the back stick. Matty Taylor's his 100th chance of the game. He's swiveled, smashed it. It looks like it's going in. It's hit the post. But the thing is, it's come back. Well, I'm running up. God knows what I'm doing on it. It just rolled to me. I thought, bloody hell, it's Christmas come early, but it's on me right snug. So I thought, Jesus Christ, it's literally, I must have had the stiffest right foot ever, just because I thought if this goes over the bar, I ain't walking out of here alive. But it just literally hit my right foot, open goal, literally tapped it in an empty net on the 92nd or 90, whatever minute. It was late doors. But what a memory that is, by the way, in terms of, I still watch the video now and it gives me goosebumps. The old bench that everyone just erupted, you know, and I just whipped the top off straight away. I'm off, and I'm off tops off around the skull. So yeah, nice. A memory that, as I say, it's luck. It's the right time, right place. Anyone could have been there and tapped that ball in. Like it wasn't a great goal in such of skill, but I was just the lucky one that it fell to, and I tapped it in, you know. But yeah, what memories after that, and the scenes and things that you can't replicate in any other place than football, and they're the incredible highs that you play for every day and every time you train. They're the highs that you obviously work for, and I was just lucky enough to get that high, and what a high it was, really.
Not everybody's lucky enough in their career to feel such a euphoric moment as that. Obviously, like, I can imagine it was surreal at the time, but when you watch it back, like, what did that do for your football career, that moment? Like, what did it do to you as a player?
Yeah, I don't think it really changed my career as such, really, in terms of as a player. It was sort of, yeah, we got promoted and I got the opportunity to play that one step higher. But yeah, as a player, it probably didn't do much or to my thing. I remember sitting down. We all obviously went out that night, and I remember sitting there in the Bristol hotel on my own, thinking, what the hell has just happened there? Like, I remember sitting there vividly and just sitting there going, what has gone on? Like, it didn't last long. It lasted about 2 minutes and I was off. But yeah, I just remember thinking, that is mental. Like, I was on a bit of a come down from such a high. Like, as you can imagine, it's a moment that I was very lucky to experience, and one I cherish very highly. As I say, as a football career, it didn't really change much, really, apart from I got the opportunity to play a league higher and test myself in that league, really.
So you do that, obviously you have the scenes, you have the night out, you go to Vegas, you have the party, incredible. And then you come back and you think, right, I'm playing in League One next year. We've discussed how you've managed to get over, you know, hardship, how you've managed to get over negative feelings and being relegated, obviously, being one of them, but you've just been promoted. So how do you, specifically you as a person, deal with success? And what did you do that summer to prepare for the next season?
Yeah, for me, it was not a nervous time, but it was, I think everyone, that group had never been into League One. He'd signed players from non-league, League Two. So none of us really had played in League One. So I think we were all excited, but we also knew that we'd have to be bang on it in terms of fitness. I always used to go back to fitness. I'd always know that I just need to be fitter. I just need to be fitter. Look, we're going into a new league. It's going to be better players. I need to be fitter than what I was last year because I don't want to get mugged off. And that's how I used to always think about it. I don't want to get mugged off. I don't want to be embarrassed. That's the last thing I want to do just for my own self-pride. So I literally always used to go back to just get fitter. Just get fitter. And regardless of the ability, I couldn't trap a bag of sand, but I could run. So it was sort of like that. So yeah, it was sort of always went back to just get fitter. And that's what I did that summer. You know, we were going into a higher league. I knew I'd have to be fitter than what I was before because obviously you're playing against better players. So yeah, that's what I did. And we had the party, we had the fun, and what fun it was. But then it was sort of right back to business. 3 weeks before I didn't stop.
I signed in January, obviously, and I walked into a tight-knit changing room and like you say, I managed to integrate pretty well. You know, we're all still very close to this day. And we've discussed a lot about your mental strength and obviously through knowing you for the period of time in which we were teammates and since then, your ability to overcome hardship is obviously really good. And people, I believe, may undervalue how talented you are as well. But something I always looked up to you for, and I know, you know, we're the same age, but advice on, and many of us did, was your confidence and your ability to have difficult conversations with people, whether that be a manager, whether that be the owner of the football club, whether that be with supporters, that guys used to go to you with problems and you'd be able to take that and speak on behalf of the group or speak on behalf of yourself and do it very well. And I think that that's something that, you know, when I'm trying to dissect your career and trying to decide what is an outstanding talent of Brownie's that people can take something from, is that your ability to, not confidence, but your ability to have those conversations and trust yourself and for other people to lean on you for advice was always something you were really good at. Was that something that you has come naturally to you, or something you had to develop?
You saying that, it shocked me really, in terms of, I didn't really ever see it like that. For me, I was just having a conversation with my friends, and my opinion is, I would just say how I would deal with the situation, and my opinion on things really, and how people took that is how they took it really. But yeah, confidence in a way, in terms of, I was always all right having a conversation or negotiating a contract, or I always felt confident in my ability to do that. That was one thing I backed myself in more than my ability. I always backed myself that I could hold a good conversation with either the CEO or the dustman. It didn't bother me, in terms of I'd speak to them exactly the same, and I could hold myself in the boardroom or down the street. I always knew that I had that ability to speak to the different people, and that's one thing that I probably backed myself the most on, that I could probably talk myself into a contract. I probably did it many times, but no, in terms of people coming to me for advice, I don't know, did they? I'm not really too sure if they did or they didn't. You know, it's nice to think that people felt like they could, and it's quite nice, you know, that people think that they could do that. And I'd always look at it in their best interest. If anyone ever come to me with a problem, or if I could help in any way, or if they wanted something sorted but they probably didn't have the confidence to go and deal with it, I'd always feel like, if that was my friend, I'd want to deal with it for you, because I knew that was my ability to hold that conversation. And if that was to help my mate out for whatever it was, I can't even give you an example, then I'd always do that for them 100%, and I'd still do that to this day. If someone said, I need help with something, and you're a good friend of mine, I'd bend over backwards for them, regardless if it's an awkward conversation with X, Y, or Z.
You know, I'm lucky now that obviously the Aldershot manager where I'm currently playing has asked me to be the captain of that club, and I take that responsibility obviously now that I'm the link between the players and the manager, and if anything the players need, you know, they can come to me. But those skills that I feel like I've learned at that role are through people like you, and I've had a conversation with Byron Webster, who was a captain of a team I was before. A couple of the guys I grew up with at Bournemouth are guys that have all sort of taken those, tried to take that from. How important do you think it is for, you know, not necessarily just people who are captains, but footballers in general, to feel confident enough to stick up for themselves in conversations, whether that be with a manager or contracts? And because football's a quite a sensitive place, right? And a lot of people will just take what they're given, or not stick up for themselves, or if they've got a problem with a manager, they'll talk to the teammate about it and not actually front it up with a manager. How much of a skill do you think it is for players to have the confidence to be able to stick up for themselves?
Yeah, no, it's an attribute for sure. It's an attribute to know your worth and just to have the ability to have that conversation. But what I would say is, there's so many complex characters in football, and not everyone is the same. Not everyone has the ability to hold a conversation and with a manager or assistant manager or a chairman. Not everyone has that ability. So for me, I sort of respect that there is so many complex characters. And that is when they have to lean on good teammates, and that's what I think you need to be, as a good teammate, because not everyone, I could name 5 or 6 in my change room now who wouldn't have that ability to have a conversation or stick up for himself, and it don't make him a weak person. There's a stigma in football that you're weak, you're mentally weak, or you're this or you're that, and do you know what? If you're doing the business on a Saturday, I don't really care what you are. For me, And I think there's such of a mentality, you've got to be this way, you've got to be that way. Well, not everyone is that way. And it's how you adapt and how you get through your life being that. But look, I'd always encourage someone to have a conversation. If you feel like you're getting mugged off or you're being treated disrespectfully or you have something to say, then you need to say it in the right manner. It always has to be done in the right manner, and I'd always encourage someone to have that conversation, you know, even if it's awkward. It'd be forgotten about in a couple of weeks, but you've got to have that conversation. And I was particularly never really worried about that, but some people do worry, and there's nothing wrong with that. But look, if they need some support, then that's what you have good teammates for, and that's where the senior pros and people who have been around the game like yourself now is where they can lean on you for, what do you think I should do? What should I do there? And that's why they're so important.
If I was going to describe to people about you and specifically your football, then one of the words I would use is consistency.
I thought you were going to say something else.
One of the words I would use is consistent. I never really saw you perform badly, to be honest, mate. I never saw you physically struggling. You've always been a good teammate.
You're on the take here, aren't you?
Yeah, I've got.
Take, mate,
yeah, we're at Wimbledon now. I'm trying to get you a new contract. You were never a bad influence on a dressing room either. How did you manage to stay so consistent, both in your performance, football specifically, and also in your personality and your influence on others?
I'll be honest with you, mate. When you ain't got no ability, you can't be any worse. You can't do anything worse, mate. That's it, mate.
I know you're a humble guy, but you did. You were a good player.
Yeah, but for me, it's sort of at left back. You can I think that's probably and full back is sort of a position where you can sort of be a 6, 7 out of 10 every week. Yeah, like as a winger, you know what it's like. 1 minute you're 9 out of 10, and then you don't get the service or whatever, and then you're a 3 out of 10. Where fullback, you can be steady, but if you just do your defensive duties and you get forgetting about it in the game, you don't do nothing wrong. So I was a bit like that. If I didn't do anything wrong in the game, you sort of, he done all right. He completed a couple of passes. He didn't get beat. So yeah, I think very much just.
Was it in your mindset to be consistent, or did you go into games thinking like, just don't mess up and it'll be all right?
No, I didn't go into games like that.
Yeah,
but
I didn't think it would have been.
No, I didn't go into games like that. But I just thought all you can do is do your best in terms of focus. So I think when you're unfocused, that's when mistakes come. So yeah, I'd always do the right things. I'd always just do the right things leading up to a game, and just put myself in the best position I could. How I performed on the Saturday is sort of the luck of the draw, innit?
So what did you base your performance on a Saturday then? For you to feel like I played well, what do you need to do?
Depends. Do you know what? It's changed throughout my career, really. When I was younger, I'd say I want to get in loads of crosses. I want to get in. If I've got in 8 crosses and I've had some joy down the left, then I've done all right here. Regardless of the defensive aspect, I sort of was, I need to get forward. The older I got, it's sort of, I realised the importance of defending. Now, I know I'd have a good game if I stopped their winger who was a main threat, or didn't give the ball away. And I think every player knows when you've had a good game or a bad game. If you know, at whatever level, you know if you've done all right or if you haven't done all right. You're kidding yourself on if you don't know. Yeah, for me, I just always used to judge it on not making mistakes, really, in terms of not giving the ball away, my score, not my man not scoring. How much joy did I have putting the crosses in down the left side? So yeah, there's loads of aspects of what I would look at in terms of how I thought I did in that specific game.
You were always I know you touched on it a few times about having to run was your idea of hard work. But how did you manage to recover so well? Like there's obviously in League One, League Two, there's an incredible amount of games. You played in all of them. You've played in every single one. You never rarely very injured.
It's caught up on me, man. I can't move now. I can't even run. I'm gone, man. That was when I was 22. I was nuts, when but no, do you know what? back then, bloody hell, I don't know.
Was there anything that you were doing, or you just managed to get over it naturally?
Not particularly, yeah. It must have just been natural, I wasn't really big for supplements as such in terms of, right, I had to have my protein shake directly after a game, or on the Sunday I was eating X, Y and Z. I'd eat terrible on the Sunday. And I think it was just that, just grind it out, and especially, my body used to just sort of keep going, and nothing really to what I did in terms of supplements or going to the gym on a Sunday, because that never happened. That never ever happened. So it was more of a natural thing, I think, for me.
You've only played for 3 clubs in your career, and that's including, well, I'm not including QPR because obviously you made 1 appearance, but for Bristol Rovers, Portsmouth, and obviously just most recently Wimbledon. It's rare these days if players have a small amount of moves like that in their career. You've been playing for 14, 15 years, and if you do include QPR, that's 4 clubs, which is pretty rare. No, it's very rare for players to go through 1 or 2 clubs. But what do you think it is about you? And I know you're a humble guy, and I'm trying to ask you questions that I'm half asking you to big yourself up for people's benefit, and you're not. But what do you think it is about you that people, because, and also you left for Portsmouth, but Rovers wanted to keep you. You negotiated a deal, obviously, to Wimbledon from Portsmouth, but you could have stayed there if you wanted to as well. Yeah. So it's not like ever you've been asked to leave a club, apart from QPR, obviously, when you were younger, but every other team has wanted you to stay. Every other manager has wanted you around the place, whether if you're in a team or not. What do you think it is about you that's so attractive to a manager of a club?
I've just got the waffle, mate. I've got the waffle. I'm just top waffler, mate. No, I really don't know. I've been really lucky in terms of, since QPR, I've never really been released. All right, a little bit at Portsmouth, but that's another story, But I've been really lucky in terms of, thing is in football, everyone loves just a good person around the place. There's so many dickheads in football, as we know. It's not beat around the bush. There's a lot of arrogant people. There's a lot of people who...
A lot of egos, yeah.
A lot of egos. There's a lot of egos in football. Everyone knows that. So for me, I've never had an ego. I never will have an ego. And I think that's probably what people would like. They like them characters because, I don't know. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I couldn't tell you why. Obviously, you've got to perform. You've got to play well. So if you're not playing well, they don't want you there anyway. But I do think a factor is being a good person and a good person to people around the place. That is massive. It's really big for me, to be honest, in terms of treating people how you'd like to be treated, and just having a smile on your face. Sometimes we're in such a pressure cooker in football. You need to be able to enjoy it, because if you're not enjoying it, what we all doing, is no point. So I'm a big believer in, look, let's enjoy it while we're doing it, because it's such a short career. So every day, especially now, I try and come in and sort of enjoy every day. And we've got some good characters now at Wimbledon, which is making that a lot easier. So yeah, for me, I'm just a big believer in terms of just trying to be positive around the place. And if that gets me a new contract, It's doing all right a minute.
Before we finish, obviously myself being a Portsmouth fan, and you spent almost 4 or 5 years there in the end, massive football club, had some sort of success, obviously winning at Wembley, scoring a penalty. But one of the things that I'm interested to talk to you about is that I watched enough of the games, and I got enough of an insight from you into the team and stuff. And as a player, obviously looking from the outside in, I understood that you added a lot of value to that team, both on and off the pitch. Supporters of that football club may or may not have always agreed that you were the best player for that position at the club, right? And I know that you were aware of that. When you stepped out of the team, more often than not, and this isn't obviously biased because I'm your friend, but they struggled at left back when you weren't available to play. Were you ever aware of that? And how did it make you feel sometimes getting a bit of stick from supporters about your performances when actually you were the best player at the club for that job at the time, and when you'd left, there was a massive hole in that team that was left by you?
Yeah, no, God, I'll tell you what, I owe you some money after this interview. Don't you going to get me another 2 years?
I think so.
No, look, I think as a player, you always, when you come out of a team and they struggle, or then obviously you know if someone's made a mistake, or so yeah, it just happened that happened at the time. Every time I come out, they'd lose or whatever, but not necessarily because of me. I don't think it was necessarily because of me.
Must have felt nice though.
Yeah, it did feel good. Obviously, I celebrated. No, I didn't. But I don't know. It's in terms of the fans' criticism. Do you know what? They were good to me, really. The Portsmouth fans, in the end, they were good to me, and yeah, we went through spells where I probably did get abuse, but then it come back round, and it's same as everywhere, really. I think I've had that throughout my career, even at Bristol Rovers. Like, they'd abuse you, they'd love you 1 minute, and then they hate you the next.
People questioning your value in the team sometimes.
Yeah, I think I've had that. I think every player gets that. Every player gets that. You're one game of being the worst player in the world, and that's just the world we live in. And I think when you're younger, you probably take that to heart. But when I was at Portsmouth, I was a completely different person. I couldn't care if they thought I was horrendous or they thought I was the best player they've ever seen. I knew what I brought. I knew what I bring to the table. It wasn't the best player by far means, but I knew the value that I could bring to that team. If I brought it or not is a different story, but in my head, I sort of knew what I could bring. But yeah, no, I wasn't worried about the criticism one bit, really, when I was there. And in the end, I think they sort of got to know that I didn't really care, and they probably could see what I did bring. I knew that I wasn't unbelievable, and I think they respected that. Thought that I knew that I wasn't unbelievable, but I'd work my socks off, if that makes sense. And I think the people of Portsmouth respected that. And yeah, no, it was a good time of my career. That I don't have no regrets at Portsmouth. I loved it there.
It was good for tickets for me as well. That was lovely. And
cool, you're telling me.
Yeah, need to find another way to get some tickets to
Marlon,
games and that.
Marlon's back on it now.
I hope so, yeah.
That's why I got the interview.
It's the reason why I was on here.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish off, mate. Like, they're sort of quick fire questions, but I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into each of them, so they might take a little bit more time. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received in your career?
Just not to give up, really. Never ever give up. It doesn't matter how low you are. Just never give up. And that is probably the biggest advice that I was given, and I've used it throughout my whole career.
I know you've touched on a little bit earlier that you've been able to get through your career on 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 performances, but in your opinion, what was the best performance that you've ever had?
I'm not even just saying this. I actually don't think I've got over a 6 or 7 out of 10. Like, I couldn't tell you one game where I've been unbelievable. Like, honestly,
you scored 2 goals here for Portsmouth once?
That was a good one. That was a good one. I was fresh though. I had 4 weeks out injured, and that was my first game back. Felt good, didn't I? Yeah, maybe that one, just because of the goals. But on a whole, I couldn't tell you. Sunderland, I'll tell you another one is Sunderland in the Checkatrade final as well. I felt like I'd done well that game as well. But that's what I'm saying. Over the course of a 14-year career, I'm picking out of a handful, But yeah, them two. In
hindsight, can you tell the difference between your preparation before a game when you've performed well or badly, or not really?
Nah, not really. I'll do the same things every game. I have the same pre-match. I have the same drinks. It's all a much of a muchness. I think you overthink that when you play badly, but when you play well, you the last thing you think about is what you had for pre-match. For me, anyway.
The most difficult moment of your career?
Probably the relegations. The relegation from the conference was tough. Taking away that when I got released, I think the playing wise is when Bristol Rovers got relegated. That was the toughest, and I was at an age where it did affect me badly because I was young. I was trying to make my way in the game, and that was probably my lowest ebb for sure.
Would you have done anything differently? I know you're talking about how you got over that by hard work and running and trying to be the best version of yourself as you possibly could. But in hindsight now, looking back, would you have done anything differently after that?
No, I don't think I would. I don't think I would. I think looking back now, I probably would do it all over again, exactly the same. I'd get out of Bristol straight away. I'd work hard because it was the only way back for me. even now at my age, I'd act exactly the same.
The best player that you've ever played with?
Adel Tarab.
When you were at QPR?
Yeah, he was a player.
Like
attitude stunk, but he was a great player.
Yeah, so this is the thing. Like sometimes I to ask that question, and then I've got a bit as to why was he the best ever player that you've played with? What was he doing? So that people could obviously take parts of their game as well. But I can imagine he was just incredible talent.
He was incredible in terms of on the ball. Neil Walnut come in that year and basically given the captain's armband. By the way, he had the worst attitude you've ever seen in football, by the way. Literally, I could sit here all day talk about his attitude. But obviously, I was an 18, 19-year-old lad, so I didn't have not one say. I was just watching it from afar. But his ability, literally that year when they got promoted to the Prem, he was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, scoring goals. But his attitude's so bad. But the thing when they wanted to give him the armband and sort of galvanised him, and he literally got promoted, got us promoted that year, or QPR promoted that year. But yeah, ability-wise, the best you've seen.
I'm sure I've seen videos of him recently. Obviously, he's Benfica, and I think he talks about how, like, oh yeah, I've changed my mindset on my game and stuff like that now. He still obviously plays a similar way. I think he plays a midfield role that's not necessarily like trying to nutmeg everyone every time he gets it.
Now,
yeah,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but I think he does even himself speak about how, maybe I got things a little bit wrong when I was younger, but he was sensational, was he?
Yeah, unbelievable for someone who can control a ball and turn a game on his head. And some of his goals when he was at QPR, I'd watch the highlight reel, you'd be like, incredible. But his attitude, incredible as well.
The most important attribute, in your opinion, that players need to have if they're going to make a career out of the game?
I think a strong mindset that you never give up, Of course you need to have ability in terms of you need to be able to pass a football. Of course you do. But for me, I think the biggest attribute is the mental side of things in terms of the never give up attitude. And I think a good example is Tom Lockyer, as we were speaking about earlier. His mindset is incredible. And he's one that stands out for me, really. But yeah, I think it's a bigger attribute than what people think.
Do you think having a strong mindset is something that comes naturally to you, or something that you can learn, or something that you can train?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you get some negatives in your life or in your career, it's sort of how you train yourself to react to that. Now, it's so easy to react badly and just go and get a takeaway, or just sack the gym off, or I won't be asked, because they feel sorry for himself. And there's people now, I see it today, like people have that, and that's their mentality. Now that is a problem. Now, do they change that? The older, see, like Adele, he realises now he's whatever age, he must be 30 odd, he's probably realised that was a mistake back then, and he shouldn't have done that. So I think it gets to a point where you do realise, but the quicker the better, really, because some people haven't got his ability and you'll be out of the game, just out of your mentality alone. And
last one, mate. What advice would you give to anyone starting out their career in football as to how they can have a long-lasting, successful career?
I think just, as I say, attitude in terms of how you apply yourself every day. You're going to have setbacks. It's how you react from them setbacks is massive, because you will have setbacks. No one has not had setbacks unless you're Ronaldo, but Easy probably had setbacks. But you're going to have setbacks. It's how you react from them setbacks, and you must react in a positive way. And that would probably be my biggest advice, really.
Listen, Brownie, I appreciate it, mate. I know you've found it very difficult to speak positively about yourself. You're a humble guy, but hopefully I've managed to get you a new contract off the back of this.
Well, I've got another 4 year waiting for me. Chairman!
Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate your time.
Top man, mate. We're the nuts, in we?